So this is the GenAI Jam, which means that we're gonna get the energy up a little bit, right, as we get started today. So I am Kirsten Hoogenakker. I'm a senior sales engineer here at Dataiku.
And my name is Cassie Chuljian. I'm a senior data scientist here at Dataiku. But for the purposes of today, we will be both wearing other hats. And I am Cassie, a data scientist working for the market research team at the Big Tex Group.
And I'm Kirsten, now the pricing optimization analyst at Big Tex. So you are all winding down summer, entering fall, and kids are in school, the weather is starting to change, and in Texas this is a big deal because the nation's largest state fair is happening next month. Okay, thank you. And so at Big Tex, we've been preparing for this for months. This is actually one of our largest distributions for the year. So it's where we get our highest profits. We have really great brand visibility for the beers that we distribute at the state fair. And so we've been working with our executive teams, have our strategy laid out, and we were going to present to them this week. And then we got a tweet or some alerts from our marketing and trends team. And it's kind of caused a little bit of a fire drill. Cassie, do you want to tell them what happened?
So Friday afternoon rolls around. We've been spending the past few months preparing for not only the biggest event of the year, but also for our biggest meeting in preparation where we get final sign-off from all of our stakeholders, the executives, essentially saying that we have the go-ahead for the strategy that we've put together. But like everyone in this industry knows, nothing's done until it's done. And so we woke up on Monday morning to the news that no one wants to hear. Something big had happened in the industry, something that we had absolutely no control over. And it was up to us to figure out how do we quickly pivot and take this risk, turn it into an opportunity. So we got an inbox alert into our Slack group channel saying something happened in the beer industry in Dallas. So when we took a little bit of a closer look, we saw that something completely unprecedented had happened. OpenAI had partnered with the esteemed Dallas brewery, Lone Star Brewing, in an unprecedented new release for the hottest and hoppiest beer of the year, EAI. This is the first beer that's ever been crafted by AI, and it had all of Texas, all of Dallas in a buzz.
That is some juicy news.
So we obviously knew that we needed to act on this. This is something that could completely change the strategy for not only the event, but also for the meeting this week. So this is really pressing news. So the first thing that we did based on this information is we needed to validate our findings, right? One tweet, maybe it sounds like a bigger deal to us because we're data scientists, we're excited by this kind of stuff. So the first place that we look is we need to go to our Market Research Hub dashboard. Now, this we can get to by starting in the Dataiku Texas State Fair workspace that we've created. So a workspace in Dataiku is a one-stop shop where all teams, myself and the market research team, Kirsten and the pricing optimization team, our stakeholders, can all come into one place and consume the assets, the insights, all of the analysis that we have generated and built from various projects. It's also a place where they can come and have conversations with the data scientists and the analysts that have put this information together. So it's really just a central hub for all things Texas State Fair planning related. Now, from this workspace, I'm going to go ahead and click into my dashboard. So, Kirsten, I want you to come take a look at this. Now, at the top, you can see we've got a timeline of this trend alert system that we have set up. And as expected, we can see some of these warnings going off starting on Friday. So, indeed, things started coming up and rolling around as soon as this tweet was posted. Scrolling down a little bit, we can also see the top 10 tweets that are being retweeted and talked about in Dallas at the moment. And as expected, everyone's excited about this OpenAI partnership with Lone Star. Looking down a little bit further, we've got a kind of state of the beer world in Dallas dashboard. So we've got the number of breweries that people are talking about, what various beers are people talking about, and we can see in red that we have a very high number of emerging trends or events. So this would be something that we could come in and kind of just generally understand, do some exploratory data analysis, and publish into one place. On the right-hand side, we've also got some nice visualizations if we want to see a word cloud of the hashtags that are most prominently being retweeted around Dallas right now. And we can see we've got Lone Star IPAI, OpenAI, IPAI, and we've even got some fun ones in there like hashtag smart beer, hashtag future beer. So people are loving this new tweet. And then finally, down at the bottom, this is something that I think your team might find most important. We would typically expect to see somewhere around 3 tweets signaling an emerging trend or event on a daily basis. However, we can see this huge spike occur starting on Friday. And so this validates to us that this wasn't just a one-off tweet and no one's paying attention. People are talking about it. And then on the right, we can also see the number of retweets by brewery or producer. No, it might be a little bit small for us to read, but on the left, completely blowing all of the other breweries out of the water. In fact, the others all pale in comparison. We've got Lone Star with the highest number of retweets. So I might actually want to go a little bit further than just my general exploratory data dashboard. And so I'm going to click into this second tab where I've got an AI-powered chatbot powered by Dataiku Answers, where I'm able to ask some questions and interact on a more intimate level with the data. So under the hood, what this is doing is it's essentially allowing me to ask a question. For example, what is the most common brewery in tweets signaling a new event right now? So I can ask this question, and under the hood, my LLM is going to translate that into SQL, execute that SQL, and give me an answer back, as if I was just chatting with another person. And so this is really helpful to be able to kind of work with the data in real time as it's flowing through our pipeline. And we can see Lone Star is the #1 common brewery in tweets signaling a new event. So are there any questions that you think your team would find useful?
Yeah, I think this is super impressive. I think, as I start thinking about whether or not this is impactful enough to actually change our pricing optimization strategy, I'm interested to know exactly how many retweets there have been about the IPAI and if this is something that we should consider rolling out with the Texas State Fair.
Let me go ahead and ask that. And so I've asked how many tweets and retweets have there been about IPAI, because I know every time something comes up and my team, says, hey, Kirsten, we need to promote X, Y, and Z new beer for our newest distribution. We need the numbers, right? We need the data. And
absolutely.
So this is what's going to provide it right here. So we can see that just today, there have already been 70 new tweets and over 9,000 retweets about IPAI.
That's a pretty big number considering this market is, we're just looking at Dallas right now. We haven't even extended that out to the surrounding areas. And, I think these insights have been really helpful, but they're still a little bit hazy. And so I'm wondering if we can tap in to those numbers a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense to kind of take it a step back and understand how we actually built this entire alert system and dashboard.
Awesome.
So to do that, we built it in Dataiku, and we built a no-code pipeline that essentially scrapes and scans the media for things like lengthy article text, short tweets, and then it applies an LLM, a large language model, on top in order to extract when emerging events are occurring in the space that we care about. Now, for so long, my team in market research has been limited by the manual efforts, and this causes delayed reactions to occurring events that we don't catch until they're already occurring. However, in Dataiku and with large language models, we're able to take unstructured text and turn it into structure, which allows us to classify human sentiment and get our team's actions right away. So this really takes us from a reactive team to a very proactive team, and one that can take a risk, like something that comes up as a risk, and turn that instead into an opportunity. So by automating generative AI in Dataiku, this is the new power that we've extracted to be able to really stay in tune with the state of the market.
So your team's not just sitting around reading Twitter all day.
I can't tell you what they do in their off time. And by the way, this frees up a lot of our time. So maybe they are still on Twitter. But for the sake of our jobs, they are no longer on Twitter.
Amazing.
So bringing it back to the project itself, I'm going to take a quick stop in Dataiku. And this is the Dataiku flow. Now, the flow in Dataiku is a visual representation of the transformation of data from left to right. The blue boxes that you see in front of you are what we call Dataiku datasets. So wherever you have data existing outside of Dataiku, SQL, SharePoint, manually uploaded CSV file, whatever that be, we connect to your already existing data sources and pull that into Dataiku for processing. Now, the little circles that you see between those blue boxes, those are what we call recipes in Dataiku. And recipes are data transformation steps, which can span from no code to low code to high code, depending on the user and the persona and what they're most comfortable with. So let's take a quick look at the section of the flow that we are working with in order to generate this alert system. So on the left-hand side, I've got a data set that we pulled from the public Twitter repo in the Dallas area. We can see that we've got the text in the tweet, the date it was posted, any hashtags that were included, things like that. Now, the first thing that we want to do with this raw Twitter data is we want to apply a prompt using an LLM to ask some questions and get some information. Now, as a data scientist, I would historically have been relying on doing this in code, right? I would need to write out in a Jupyter notebook and connect to my LLM, make a query. However, in Dataiku, I'm using what we call prompt studios, and that's the interface that we're looking at right here. Prompt Studios is a very powerful place for developers, analysts, data scientists to come into one place, and you can test, develop, compare all sorts of different prompts and models in order to understand what the impact is going to be on your work. Now, for my team, this is really, really important because just by creating a prompt in here and running it, I can test it on a smaller subset of my data. And not only can I get a preview for the results, but I also get an estimated cost. So I can see, based on the constraints that I have around this use case, what is the cost versus what I'm getting out of the results. And this saves my team a lot of time, but also a lot of money for our budget.
And you don't have to do this with any code, and I'm seeing that you do get a preview of what that output's going to be.
Exactly. So, for example, for this first prompt, what I'm doing is I am trying to understand for each tweet, what is the beer that was referenced, and then what's the brewery or producer that generates that beer. And so we can see some of those initial results. We can see community producing Mosaic IPA, Corona, and so on. So now that we've got the first piece of our puzzle, and we've taken our raw tweet, we've extracted the beer, we've extracted the brewery that produces this beer, we want to move on to our second prompt, which is going to generate something even more impactful, which is essentially extracting human sentiment. And so what this LLM prompt does is I'm essentially asking, is this tweet signaling the emergence of a new trend or event? Or is this just, someone in Texas saying, hey, I love a good cold beer on a hot Friday afternoon? And so that's really important, right? Because then we're able to take completely unstructured text, and with just a few data set preparation steps that we can see in front of us, something that I was able to do in under an hour or two, we're able to go from completely unstructured to new categories. And these categories can feed downstream into potential models that we might want to build. But for the purpose of today, it's feeding into this alert system that we built out so that our team doesn't even have to monitor anything that's going on actively. It's going to come to us. So taking it to that last step, once again, we've got all of our data. We've pulled some information out of it. But we don't want to monitor this ourselves. So we built a trend alert scenario that essentially triggers our team to tell us every time a compelling event occurs in the space. And with this easy Slack integration, our team doesn't even have to go beyond their day-to-day messaging system in order to be alerted that something has happened. Okay. So we've now looked at the dashboard, we've validated our findings, right? Indeed, everyone is talking about this. We have gone through the pipeline that we use to build out that dashboard, extracting sentiment and structure out of unstructured text.
And you're able to use GenAI to do that.
Exactly.
So I think this is actually something that our team would really benefit from using instead of just leaving this GenAI stuff on ice.
Yeah, and we can talk about this later over a cold one even, because I think it's definitely something that your team should look into a little bit further.
Beautiful.
So we've built the pipeline out. We've layered a scenario on top that's going to make sure that we never miss an event as it emerges. And the final thing is, the most important thing that we came here today to do is we can't just leave the information in the project, right? We need to be able to tell a compelling story to the people who make the decisions, and we need them to see the full picture that we see. So for that, I'm going to go back into Dataiku stories. Now, Dataiku stories, it's going to let me click, and I'm going to wrap all this information for the market research portion of the deck up into a quick couple of charts. In fact, my manager, actually, she was very proactive and came in and sort of told me what she wants to see in this slide so far. So I've opened my handy-dandy generative AI assistant, which essentially is hooked up to all of the data under the hood that we just walked through. And I'm going to ask a question. I would like to see one bar chart with the top 10 most retweeted brewery or beer producers, which we can see. On the left, Lone Star Indeed leading the way. And on the right, I want to see a pie chart that shows us the share that IPAI takes up in terms of the top 10 individual beers that are being retweeted in the Dallas area.
These numbers are unbelievable.
We didn't practice. And I can even make last-minute changes. Like if I wanted to edit some chart properties and change this color bar chart color to blue, let's why keep it just one color? Make things interesting. And so I can start to make some edits on the fly, and this can really serve as the framework for what we're putting together. So now I've put together everything for the market research portion of this presentation, and I think it's time for Kirsten and the pricing optimization team to come in and take care of that. So I'm going to go ahead and tag her.
But
sorry.
I'm right here.
I forgot you're right here.
You're just so used to tagging me in
it's so easy to collaborate that way.
Awesome. So this is just the first part of the story, right? Where we've got the reason why we might need to remarket this beer at the state fair. And now we've got to dig in a little deeper. So my job is to really take a look at that pricing, make sure that we are maximizing our profits for what we're distributing, make sure that we know how much we're going to be selling at the state fair so that we can maximize those profits. So I'm actually going to start back on our dashboard here where we've got the beer trends overview. So this is a dashboard of different prescriptive analytics that have been built out on the data sets that you just saw. And there are some things that I can see right away. So thing number one, I'm noticing that we sell most of our beers on Saturdays and Sundays. People love drinking beer on the weekends. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'm noticing is that most of the time we are selling beers during the summer. Those are our hottest months, which might not agree with our October situation. But people do tend to drink beer when it's hot outside, and we'll see how temperature also plays a role in some of this a little later. The other thing is that this new beer that's come out is an IPA. I need a starting point for the scenario that I'm going to be running for that pricing optimization. So this is going to give me a really great starting point on that optimization problem that I have down the line. So one thing that I really love about Dataiku is that this stuff's pretty typical. I can get summary statistics. It's easy to make these types of charts as an analyst, but where that magic really comes in with Dataiku is when we can start getting predictive for things like planning for the state fair next month. So I can go ahead and build out a predictive model using the AutoML, Visual ML in Dataiku, and actually get results that are pretty good. And I feel upskilled, as we just heard about a little bit of upskilling at that panel just before this, right? This is something that is really enabling me and empowering me to feel confident in making decisions.
That's a very interesting point because I'm not going to lie, as a data scientist, I've been a little hesitant and I haven't even tested out any of the Visual ML features just because that's not what I'm used to. But after playing around with Prompt Studios and seeing how much that transformed my team's day-to-day and made us so much more efficient, I'm kind of intrigued. Could you take us a little into what are the outputs of this Visual ML? Like, what do we get from using AutoML and Dataiku?
Yeah, so one cool thing is I'm actually able to summarize all of those charts and graphs that Dataiku automatically outputs from each of these models into a dashboard. So in this case, we're trying to make this model for price elasticity. And I have things that automatically come out like partial dependence. So in this case, I can see that IPAs actually have a negative influence over the model. I can take a look at things like feature importance, and I can see that date and day of the week are going to have a really big impact on the outcome of how many units of beer we're selling.
Makes sense.
And then the other thing that I can take a look at are things like the what-if analysis. So I can see the prediction for quantity sold here is 85 for an IPA. I can start changing out some of these features to get an idea of where that model is going to predict it and potentially optimize that price point and profit.
That's really cool. My team spends a lot of time trying to build essentially anything that once you build a model, it's only goes as far as the stakeholder buy-in or what you can just demonstrate the model is showing. So this would be really, really useful for my team.
Yeah, and so on top of it, you can actually optimize those outcomes automatically as well in Dataiku.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So take it one step further. There's a lot of ways that we can actually work through that model, like feeling good about what we're putting out there.
Yeah.
But I know that like as an end user, looking at these charts and graphs and all of these numbers is not actually actionable. You need a way to actually put that into practice.
Right.
So what I've actually done is built out a web app for you and your team as consumers of this model. So we can take that price point again on that, the IPA's averaging $8.84, and I can basically just kind of run through, let's say that we're going to try and price this beer between $7 and $9. And because I already have this built out in Dataiku, this is actually going to run a scenario that's running everything under the hood. Cassie, you don't have to think about anything. I've already put those, checks and balances in place. And we're actually going to get that beer price optimization, and I'm going to very quickly be able to know how many units we need to bring to the state fair to maximize those profits. So if I scroll down here, we can see a couple of things that optimize. The highest profit here is going to be pricing this beer at 8.25, and we're going to bring 99 pallets of kegs to the state fair, and we're going to see some decent sized profits from this. So this way, I know that we've got the right price, we're going to be bringing the right amount of beer to the state fair, and we're really going to maximize those profits.
Great.
All right. So I feel like at this point, we've done some good summarization of the pricing optimization, and now I need to get my stuff together for the executive readout.
Yep.
So I'm going to go back into the same deck, and I want to do something similar. So similarly, just using the natural language. My manager has also told me exactly what she wants in this summary, and we can go ahead and ask the AI assistant. And part of what I love about this is I don't have to leave the tool to be able to create this, and it's already going to be pulling in the refresh data from that scenario that we just ran.
Oh, wow.
So I don't have to do a lot of thinking on this, and it's done for us. This text is a little small, but we can see that 8.25 is going to be that optimal price, and it's got the maximum profits for the IPAI.
All right, it looks good. What do you think?
So I think I'm feeling ready to pitch this.
I mean, I don't mean to jump ahead of ourselves, but I think I see a few executives in the room today. What do you?
And I mean, like, we're wearing hats today. I think everybody in here can wear an executive hat.
So what do we think? Are we ready to pitch this? Should we bring IPAI to the Texas State Fair?
All right. Well, in that case, I think I brought a little something for us to celebrate with. Coming to the Texas State Fair 2024, IPAI.
IPAI.
Cheers.
Cheers.